I would say the strongest certainty we still have in the mining sector is that mines get built in Mexico. We've seen mines get built in the last 2 years in Mexico, new mines being opened, and we've seen projects have some spectacular drill results. We've seen new exploration projects. But what we do know is that it is not a sector that is going to disappear. It has a legacy, it has a history, and it is a top 10 producer of the big 5 metal groups. So #1 producer of silver, but copper, gold, lead, zinc, it's in the top 10 of the world for all of those commodities. So that's not going to disappear overnight. I'm always a proponent to don't invest in one company, invest in the sector, invest in the space, find your big names and then build yourself an active portfolio.
Defiance Silver is a silver exploration mining company in Mexico. And today with me is Douglas Cavey. He is Executive Vice President of the company. Doug, first of all, thank you very much for your time. It's great having you.
Well, thank you very much for your time as well. I look forward to this interview.
Great, absolutely. I do so as well. So, Doug, you're not in a regular office sitting in Toronto and managing your company. You are right now in Mexico on site. You're sitting there because you're quite often there on site. You do have a great knowledge about Mexico. Maybe we can just start by telling us where are you at right now and why are you and your company in Mexico? What makes Mexico so exciting for investors and for mining companies?
Yes, well, right now I'm sitting in the heart of silver mining in Mexico, the Zacatecas mining district, right behind me, which you can't see because it's a bit blown out light here, is the basically the heart of the Cantera mining district, or the Zacatecas mining district, where over 1 billion ounces of silver has been mined from veins that sit right underneath my apartment, underneath the hills there. On the other side of that valley is the Fresnillo mine, and that's the world's largest primary silver mine. So being in the heart of the world's largest silver mining jurisdiction is one of the reasons that we're here in Mexico. Mexico is the top silver producing jurisdiction in the world, and Zacatecas state, which is the state that we're in here, is the largest silver producing state in Mexico. So really there's no better place to be looking for silver than where it is.
Great, absolutely. But if we talk about Mexico, there's always a, let's say, bad thing when it comes to mining, because it's one of the most important countries when it comes to mining silver, as you already said. But the future of mining in Mexico is a little bit difficult at this moment. We're close to federal elections as they are taking place this weekend. Please tell us more about the current situation in mining situation in Mexico. Why is it considered to be a little bit tough right now when it comes to permitting especially? And what do you think, what will mining in Mexico look like in the future? What will the elections change here maybe?
Well, certainly, I mean, that's a big question, but certainly, I mean, we have an exciting federal election on Sunday. What we do know is that there will be a female president elected in Mexico, and that's going to change the face of what is the leadership structure of this country and what does leadership mean? And it's a young, very both candidates as seen to be the winners of the election are very educated. They are very knowledgeable about the industrial sectors and the role of those industrial sectors in Mexico. Mining is a huge contributor to GDP and also a huge contributor to jobs. So you have about 1 million direct and indirect jobs in the mining industry in Mexico. Within Zacatecas state, mining is the largest contributor to GDP of the state of Zacatecas, and I think across Mexico, it's about 6% annual GDP. Now, that's not an exact quote, but I believe it's about 6% of the GDP of Mexico is by mines. So you're seeing a sector that has historically been one of the largest drivers of the economy. I think with every sort of, political campaign or with any type of, political endeavor, there's a lot that sort of gets either misinterpreted or misunderstood. And I think that's probably the biggest risk right now with mining in Mexico is there's uncertainty moving forward. There are still projects getting permitted. I just saw a colleague of mine's project just got their tailing storage facility permitted from Semarnat. So permits are being issued. There was a lull. There was definitely a period of time. Fortunately for us, we had the permits to do the work that we were doing, so it wasn't necessarily affecting us in the same manner. We also sort of were able to work with the local environmental offices to be able to amend certain aspects of the permit. So there's oftentimes what you hear in the media, and then there's what's happening on the ground. And stalling the mining sector was never the intention of the government. I think what they're modernizing their sector to be in line with other international mining jurisdictions. It's a no matter where you are in the world, mining is a very challenging endeavor, and jurisdictional risk exists in almost all jurisdictions. And it just depends on which aspect of it, permitting delays, the timeline for permitting. But a lot of other jurisdictions where you do have these risks, there's certainty to that risk. Whereas with what's been happening over the last couple of years, there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of misunderstanding or lack of understanding of when there will be that certainty put forward. I would say the strongest certainty we still have in the mining sector is that mines get built in Mexico. We've seen mines get built in the last 2 years in Mexico, new mines being opened, and we've seen projects have some spectacular drill results. We've seen new exploration projects become premier global, particularly silver projects, premier global exploration projects that will become new mines in the next 5 or 10 years. And so as an investor, I always go back to, why would you look at our company, or why would you look at it's because we've delivered results for shareholders, and in the past we have. And when you look at it, Mexico as an investment space or a climate of investment, a lot of shareholders have seen in multiple different companies have seen a lot of success through mergers and acquisitions, through successful project development, through mines being built. And the path has been quite clear that if you find a project and follow the regulatory framework, you will build your mine. Now, it's just that uncertainty right now that is providing a lack of sort of investor confidence, or I wouldn't say a lack of, is diminishing investor confidence when you can go and look in other jurisdictions that have a little more certainty to the steps that you have to follow, or that framework that you have to follow. Do I expect that's going to change? I do expect that is going to change over the next 12 to 18 months with a change of leadership. What is it going to mean for mining? We don't know right now, and that's an unfortunate truth, and that's an unfortunate fact. But what we do know is that it is not a sector that is going to disappear. It has a legacy, it has a history, and it is a top 10 producer of the big 5 metal groups. So number 1 producer of silver, but copper, gold, lead, zinc, it's in the top 10 of the world for all of those commodities. So that's not going to disappear overnight. And then you also have that legacy and history within the workforce here, where you have a tremendously skilled workforce. You have a very highly educated, young, middle class, but very highly educated science, technology, STEM engineering, like mining engineers, geoscientists, environmental engineers that are here in Mexico that want to work, and that will provide the future of mining and the leadership of the future of mining. And that's going to be a dramatic change. And we're going to see that's going to be industry wide, but we're going to have that locally as well here in the country.
So I think it's safe to say that we need Mexico for the entire world going forward, right? We need the metals, we need mining, and especially for when it comes to electricity, e-vehicles, and all this kind of stuff. Therefore, we need metals, we need Mexico. So mining there will be more attractive probably in the future. And that's a good insight. Thank you very much. So, but we already touched base on it, right? I mean, permitting sometimes is a bit tough in Mexico. Something is not as it was before. There's a little bit of uncertainty. And if I have a look at Mexican junior miners, most of them are at their all-time low, right? Because of the whole situation. But if I have a look at your stock, you're really picked up. You really picked up quite nice, actually, within the last few weeks and months. Why is that? What makes you so special, and why are you able to manage and navigate through this turbulent times?
Well, I think, sector-wide, we're seeing a lot of companies they're close to all-time lows. And I think, the Mexican space has had its additional downward pressure. And that's, I think we're seeing that reflected in the new investor confidence coming into the investment space here versus, okay, we're particularly more depressed in Mexico because just cross-sector wide. And yes, of course, as you say, the Defiance shareholders have benefited from an increase in share price since we did our last financing. But I think for us, we really have attempted to just maximize our dollar value. So the previous we closed the financing in March, but the previous financing we did was in 2021. And so we were able to really maximize that. And we ticked off every single milestone, including going through a legal process where we had a property illegally transferred out of our company and we litigated for it and we had that returned. So that was, of course, a really big downward pressure on our stock was having that large asset taken away from us. Now we have that back 100%. I was just down there. I just got back to Zacatecas yesterday, but I was down at the Topal project. But if you look at what we said we were going to do and set out as our goals, we achieved those milestones. And so our investors put trust in us to deliver results, which we did. The market, we can't control that. I think everybody who's been investing in the mining space does understand that there is a volatility of the market that can never be controlled. And that volatility, that can go on the way down, but that volatility can also go on the way up. And that's where you have those big fast gains, like you said, in 2020, 2021, those big, huge clips that we had. So the idea that you want to invest in a company with the right management, I think is really it's also what they're doing, what their track record has been. So we have a track record in this country of building out large assets and selling those assets to producers. And some of those are in production now. Some of them are going into production. But we also have that management knowledge and that brain trust and that intellectual property of what are the steps that are required. And some of those are kind of, there's a nuance to some of those things and there's jurisdictional nuances wherever you are. If you're in Canada, if you're in Quebec, or if you're in British Columbia, those are two very different jurisdictions that you're working in. But if you're in Nevada, or if you're in Arizona, like those are very different jurisdictions as well. If you have Mexico, there are these cultural and operational nuances that you have to do to build these projects along. And we like to think of ourselves as understanding them. And as soon as we say that, we've got it all figured out, that's probably a time to say, well, are you sure you have it all figured out? We don't, but we're willing to learn. And what we've evolved with is with the technology behind it. So we're bringing in that latest technology so that we can speak to our investors and they're up to speed with, as you say, you nailed it, with the electric vehicle production. So Tesla's putting a gigafactory in Mexico, just outside of Mexico City. But that whole infrastructure that's around is a technology-focused infrastructure. What we're using and consuming metals for, there's the raw industrial demand, but then there's also that high-tech component to it. So that we're now using the top industry scientists on our side, and that's where we've branched out on those little, those steps and frameworks for developing. So that's I think what we're seeing right now is that people look at our company and they say, okay, in the last 3 years, they've done everything that they said they were going to do, including winning a lawsuit on our Topal property. We've ticked all those boxes. And so now when you're faced with the decision, do I invest in what company, they go and they look at us. Okay, what's your track record? Well, we have a track record of exit strategies for mines in Mexico. Okay, we have a track record for financing. We've raised, tens of millions of dollars and spent that diligently. We put the money in the ground with a low overhead G&A. We have a strong, technically focused, data-driven, scientifically focused, like geoscience-driven team of people who are hungry to make discoveries. And then we have the understanding of the framework of how to do business here in Mexico. And so that's sort of that basket that we present as an opportunity to investors. And so when you're faced with, okay, do I invest in this company? I mean, I'm always a proponent to don't invest in one company, invest in the sector, invest in the space, find your big names and then build yourself an active portfolio. But when you're building that portfolio, you look for the teams that you can communicate with and that are spending time on site. Like I'm down here in Zacatecas most of the year if I'm not meeting with investors. So it's and we put our money where our mouth is. Management is a strong shareholder of the company, so we do invest in our private placements. But I think we're about 6 to 8% fully diluted, just management ownership.
So that's great. So the management has skin in the game, as we say, right? You also experience, you do have a track record. And as you already said, if we look at Defiance Silver, all the things you said that you're going to do, all the milestones that you wanted to achieve, you achieved them. But let's talk about the future. What kind of milestones can investors expect within the, let's say, 12 to 18 months in the future? What can we expect from, what kind of news release can we expect?
Definitely the big ones here are resource estimate update on the San Nicasio project, resource estimate update on the Topal project, additional exploration results from the Zacatecas district. So we're the second largest landowner in the Zacatecas district. And it's a 1 billion ounce historic silver camp. And our next door neighbor, Capstone Mining, is a large underground copper silver mine. And then across the valley is the Fresnillo mine. We're surrounded by operating mines. And we've put together a very, very high quality land package that has delivered results. We've made exploration discoveries on it. We've got a resource estimate underway. We've got historical mining of over 100 million ounces of silver. We have area play that is it's a lookalike to the Fresnillo district over on the other side of the valley, which we've drilled discoveries on already. We've put out spectacular surface results there as well. And so we're seeing this evolving story, but we have to deliver on the exploration results, which, as I said, we drilled the third highest grade silver drill hole in all of Mexico, the largest silver producing country in the world, in the first quarter of 2024. So our model works. Our exploration thesis works. Our exploration team is outstanding. We put them up against just about anybody in the world to find ounces of silver, or other types of deposits too. But what you can expect is really those fundamental pieces that are building the story and are the pillars of the story. So an updated resource estimate at San Acacio, which is a historic mine. Updated resource at Topal, which right now is already 1.8 million ounces of gold and 813 million pounds of copper in a measured and indicated category. So we already have a large resource estimate on that. But an updated resource estimate at Topal, ongoing exploration in the Zacatecas district, which in a more lofty silver market where we're drilling these high grade silver drill holes, I think you can expect that there'll be at least eyes on the story. I don't know, it's impossible to predict how the market will respond. But we do have the news flow to at least support these, building these reaching these milestones that we've been talking about. So those are kind of the three biggest ones that I can talk about right now.
That sounds really good, really interesting. And it sounds like we will have an exciting future here for your company. But we touched base on the company now. Let's talk about the let's say, macro situation here. I mean, silver has seen a great increase. As you already said it's hard to control the market in general, right? It's tough for junior miners at the moment. But now we really break through the $30 market when it comes to silver. We're still above it. How long will it take until really the industry picks up like we have seen it in, let's say, 2020, 2021? What does it need now for the mining companies to go back up again? I mean, you have seen a lot of cycles, a lot of ups and downs. You do have a lot of experience. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that's there's always the philosophical, when do investors show back up into a market? And I think they show up when when there's money to be made. That's when the investor shows up. That's when the big funds show up. It's they move into the industry when there's money to be made. And it's when those larger funds, when those more generalist funds, when those larger investors, generalists, high net worth individuals, when they're seeing that this, which historically mining has kind of been on two fronts. There's the more industrial front, but then there's and that's a more solid, that's trading on commodity prices. That's your larger mining companies. And we're starting to see them close up, and we're starting to see their share prices be reflective of what they're producing. That hasn't quite happened yet. And that's usually a leading indicator. Another leading indicator is the M&A space and where we are in the M&A cycle. Traditionally, the M&A cycle indicates when we're entering into a bull market and then when we're exiting a bull market. And you look for how much M&A has occurred, when it's occurring, because that trickle down M&A is what you want. You want the majors, and it trickles down to the mid-tier consolidation. And then that trickles down to the juniors, where it's either the mid-tiers or the majors are buying the juniors. We haven't really seen that happen yet. There's been the rare occasion. There always is. There always is in the bad markets. There's still buyouts that happen. But that M&A cycle is, I think, for me, a really strong leading indicator, but also kind of tells you where you are in that curve of the mining space. The value traders, they look like they're starting to trickle in. I mean, stocks that are trading pretty well, and they are turning up. Like Defiance has been doing quite well, but then there's other names in the space that have been picking up steam, and some of those are your more advanced cash flowing mid tiers. In Mexico, you've seen Mag Silver do really well. There's a couple other stories that are I think ripe for either consolidation in the M&A space, or are going to see that value trader show up just based on the fact that metal prices are up, they're producing at a low cost because of the jurisdiction that they're in. So I think we're still in the early innings. I'm hesitant. I do believe, and I know I shouldn't say it too fast, but I do believe the bottom went in February. Could we get down there again? I mean, the summer is always traditionally or historically a tough time for the junior space, but it seems to be that there's a bit of a window right now happening. We're seeing a lot more financings go through. We're seeing a lot more traditional style financings go through. So your brokered placements, your prospectus placements, your bought deal for private placements, and then non-brokered raises, of course. And then in Canada, we have those prospectus exempt life financings that a number of companies did take that option. And I think they're great because they brought new investors in. But the volume's starting to show up as well. And so we're seeing more consistent volume across the market. And that shows, I think that gives investor confidence in that when you have volume and you have that sort of liquidity in the stock, your investors can come in confidently knowing that they can get out if they want to get out. And if that volume isn't there, then why would you invest into a sector? You're effectively buying private companies and they're trading on appointment. So you need to have that volume because that volume is the macro indicator of bigger funds coming in, generalists, because they want to come in. They say, okay, I'm going to stick the cycle out, but I want to be able to get out of my position on my accords. And then it's trading more like the physical commodity versus the stock. Because when you take the physical commodity, you take ownership, but then you can sell it.
Yeah.
And so if you take the stock, if you take ownership and you can't sell it, then what good is it for you?
Right, absolutely. Great. Thank you very much for your insight. So let's say we are at the bottom right now and we're at the beginning of the bull cycle for the junior companies. Then it's always good to have like a great company. And we already talked about Defiance Silver. Maybe for the end, you can summarize for us, why should someone consider investing into Defiance Silver maybe today? What are the key points of the company? What to expect? What are your personal 3 main reasons to invest?
We have why would you invest in Defiance Silver? We have a team of people with over 200 years cumulative experience working in the mining industry. Management our senior management, operational management has over 100 years cumulative experience taking projects from early stage discoveries through to large silver and other districts through to M&A, financing them along the way. We have success with financing, but we have success developing projects in the jurisdiction that we work in. We have a stable of a portfolio of projects that we could have. We have 2 standalone assets. So we have the San Acacio asset or the Zacatecas district asset. We're the 2nd largest landowner in one of the best world-class silver mining jurisdictions in the world. So it is the place to be if you want to be looking for silver is in Mexico. But if you want to be looking for silver in Mexico, you want to be looking in the Fresnillo and Zacatecas districts. You have every major mining company in the world with silver exploration projects in this district. And the third is that we understand and we put our money where our mouth is. So we purchase, management insiders control about 20, maybe even 30% of the stock. We participated in the financings. The last financing that we did, management participated over 10% of the stock. But we're very diligent because of that, we're very diligent with our spending. And like I said, our last financing before that was in 2021. We did this raise and then we'll continue to buy stock in the open market. We really stand behind what we do. We put our money where our mouth is. So 3 things: team, assets, and that we are strong shareholders like our current shareholders, but like future shareholders as well.
Great. Doug, thank you very much for sharing your story with us, to pitching us Defiance Silver. It's always great to have an insights of exciting companies and especially for giving us insights on the current situation in Mexico. Thank you very much for all your time. Is there anything else for the end you would like to mention or add?
Well, no, absolutely not. Just keep an eye on Defiance. We have lots of great news coming out. We have our updated resource estimate on San Acacio. We have updated resource estimate on Topal. Like I said, 1.8 million ounces of gold, 813 million pounds of copper right now. So full scale, all commodities that are of importance in this EV evolution right now, or EV revolution. But I think if you're listening to this interview, you're at a really interesting time in the mining space and a really interesting time that you're viewing these mining companies right now because you're seeing them at all-time lows. So I encourage you all to just build your portfolios, look at them, and then reach out to us. And Jan can get you guys in contact with any of me or our team here, and be happy to hear from you. And if you have any more questions about Mexico and what's happening in Mexico, happy to spend some time to make sure that everybody's comfortable with the space.
Great. Thank you very much for your time, and talk again to you soon.
Great.